Welcome into Coach's Corner. Jordan Woodruff with you, and great to have you along. This episode brought to you by First National Bank of Oklahoma here in Ponca City. Today's guest, Justin Roland, with the double role in a way, and we're going to kind of do a double with this. We'll recap what happened with some football, and we'll also look ahead at what's going on with wrestling. But, Coach, great to have you along.
Good to be here, buddy. Good to be back.
All right, let's talk football first. Muskogee's in the state championship coming up this week, going to play Stillwater. And you guys gave them about as good a game as anybody could imagine. And I think it goes to show just how close you can actually be right now to maybe getting to a semifinal or state final, because you guys were in 4 points, have a chance in that game to take the lead. And if you could do that, that may change the whole dynamic.
There's no doubt. I think it was one of those things where you're a little disappointed now. Good for Muskogee, but you're literally maybe 1 or 2 plays away from being a winner in that game. But I think it was a boost to some of our younger players to see how close they really are. You know, we played Deer Creek, we played Muskogee, and to have them at our own field, all of our kids were watching, and it'd be really evenly matched. That sometimes we kind of played Muskogee better than Deer Creek did. Yeah. So it was good to watch.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, you look at the score, you start comparative scoring, that wasn't indicative of how close that game was. I mean, big plays can make a big difference, and capitalizing on the right moments. Ponca didn't maybe do that on a couple of key moments where Muskogee did, but, you know, I got calls saying, hey, it looked like it was a blowout. I'm like, no, Ponca has the ball at the 40-yard line. They're close to taking the lead after that little onside kick that wasn't really an onside kick.
Right. No, it's funny because just a bunch of plays in the game, you know, you got that one where, AJ makes that catch, you know, it may be a different ball game. Going back and watching the film, there are times where we had chances to make plays defensively and get off the field that we didn't make. But then you look at just the player comparison. You know, the McGee kid, he had 3 catches against us for 30 yards. He had 5 against Deer Creek for like 150 and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. So I feel like we did enough to be in the game, just not quite enough to win it.
Yeah, you made them change their personality a little bit too. I mean, it wasn't a lot of big plays. They had to run the football.
Right, and you know they didn't against Deer Creek. You know, number 4 is a heck of a tailback. The quarterback didn't run very much against us. He ran a ton against Deer Creek in the semifinals. So there were things that we were I would say we're better than them at, but you know we just came up a little bit short.
It's a crazy season for a lot of reasons, for the guys, the coaching staff, the fans, everybody, but a successful season, and once again a season where Ponca's proved that this isn't the same old Ponca people have seen the last 2 decades.
Absolutely. No, man, and I think it goes back for a couple of years of just trying to build that mindset of just toughness and discipline, do things right, you know, make the right decision. And I think 6A2 is one of those places where if you work hard, you develop a good program, you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, and then speaking of toughness and, your discipline, that goes into the next sport that we're in season with now, our winter sport with wrestling. And I know you, even coaching football, me and you were talking a little bit of wrestling, and it is here now. And, of course, the main goal is getting on to that February time with the state championship, dual states, all that. But there's a lot of wrestling between now and then, and I know you're excited about what these kids can accomplish this year.
Absolutely. You know, we had our red and blue duel last night. Got to throw some guys in there. We held out most of the football players. They got in there Monday. But it's going to be a fun season. And for us, we start so hard so early. You know, you get the number 3 team in the country comes in Thursday. So you got to be ready to go. And then Perry tournament, Blackwell, Kansas City. So you got to kind of start fast and then even it out and then really push there towards the end.
You know, I think there's always rule changes year to year, but the one that maybe stands out, they go from waiting 45 minutes between about when you're at these tournaments to now just waiting 30 minutes, right? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, so you can wrestle, you can only you get a 30-minute break before you can wrestle another match, but normally that only affects the backside, normally the front side. So if you stay on the championship side, you got probably too long of a break. in between each
Right.
matches. But on the backside and the second day of those big tournaments, you can kind of pile them up.
Was that a good change?
I like it. I think the kids want to go wrestle. I think it's hard to warm up, get cold, warm up, get cold. So if a kid could pick, they would like to stay warm. So it's good.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the mindset for those that have been to tournaments, like you said, somebody like Chris Kaiser, who's always wrestling in the championship brackets, he may wrestle and then it's 2.5 hours before he gets out there again. And then he takes another break and wrestles once and comes back and doesn't wrestle the next day because he's in the championship. You want to be there,
Right.
But at the same time, like you said, that mentality of staying in that zone for a prolonged period, that's something those kids have to learn.
It's tough, and you really learn it. For wrestlers, you learn it at a young age if you go to the big tournaments. You go to Tulsa Nationals and you may weigh in at 4 and only wrestle one match between 4 and 11 p.m., so you kind of start learning then. But I think that's part of the grind, right? That's part of what makes wrestling tough is being able to stay engaged no matter where you're at in the tournament. And when it's your time to go, you got to go. Like last year, I think Gabe stepped on the mat for his quarterfinals at like 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And we'd got there at 8 a.m. Well, you got to go wrestle. That's what it is. So it will help, though. It'll help keep those kids engaged and make the day go a little bit faster.
All right, let's talk about your team. You highlighted with a returning state champion, but there's a lot of guys on this team that have upped their game. You got guys that are coming out that may help you on the mats, but also help you in the practice room. So let's talk about this team this year. And I know you like to do it by going through your weights.
Yeah.
I know it's not a final product yet.
Right.
That'll have to wait. But at the same time, got a lot of quality guys, and you're excited.
Right. I really like those first couple weights to be younger kids, and we got a couple, Garrett Short at 106, just a tough kid. Probably one of the better junior high kids coming up this year. Ton of fight, ton of aggression. He'll be a big shot in the arm. Blake Parker at 113 along with Connor Cox. Blake, I wrestled with his uncle. His uncle was David Parker, so it's fun to get those legacy kind of kids back in the room. And Blake's really tough, really stingy, kind of a longer 13-pounder. Of course, Connor Cox will be in there somewhere. He'll rank probably starting out at 113, then maybe work his way down. But he's a second-year kid in the program doing really well. 120 and 126 will be manned by Chris Kaiser and Jimmy Swinson, just depending on where they end up, their weight. Me and Chris really talked about potentially challenging him this year and getting ready for Michigan. So you could see him at 26 some, see him at 120 some.
Yeah, and talk about that with Chris because, naturally it'd be nice to win a third state championship.
Right.
And, a lot of kids would say, put me in the class where I can go and win that.
Right.
That's not Chris's mentality.
Right.
He's thinking about his future wrestling now going to be at Michigan. He really wants to prepare, so he's, where some kids are like, hey, I want to stay there. He's okay going up a class and wrestling maybe some tougher dudes.
Absolutely, and I think it's just a mindset of what you're teaching him. We don't talk about winning very much with Chris. We talk about getting better. Talk about challenging ourselves. I think it's a little selfish for us as a coach if we just hang on high school accomplishments. I think it speaks better for us in our program if kids are going to college and doing well. So that's what the talk is with Chris. Hey, let's go wrestle some of the best kids in the country. That's what you're going to have when you get to the Big Ten. So if we can start that process a little early, let's go for it.
Yeah, so there's your 120, 126. Go on through the rest of the weights here.
So 132 will be his twin brother, Cameron. Could also potentially make 126. He's kind of in the air. I like Cameron when Cameron's feeling good and Cameron's healthy and he's not the best weight cutter, and his style, he can wrestle a bunch of different weights. Now, the log jam seems to be at 38 and 44 where we have Ethan Papan, who was a kid that comes back. Ethan made the finals last year at the Perry tournament, tore his ACL, had season-ending knee surgery. He's back at that 38 to 44 range. Gavin Weir, who's just a wonderful program kid, has beautiful technique, probably just has to change his mindset a little bit. And then Braden Percival. And I'm not sure if you were here when Braden's brother was here, but he's a legacy kid. been wrestling a long time, really grew up in the Ponca program. So those three will battle those weights out, and it should be really competitive. I don't know which way that'll go yet, but the red and dual blue match last night, we kind of matched them up a little bit, but that'll be a good one. 150 and 157, you're looking at Cash Pasley at 150, and young kid, really, really strong. I think Cash has reached a point where he's a committed wrestler. 157 could be a multitude of weight with those football guys coming back in. It's kind of where you start seeing them kick in. Okay. Right now, we got a young kid there, Axel. I can't remember his last name, but Axel will be there. 165, you'll see Anderson Bivens, Jackson Goddard's in there. He's coming down. Lance Arbona between that 65 and 70 weight should be pretty good. Caden Lewis at 190. Caden is kind of the unsung hero because he's been around such good kids since he's been in high school. His freshman year, heck, we got Landon Newland and we got Gabe. So he's finally programmed kid that's going to get a shot. And then at 220 or 215, the heavyweight, we got a ton of football kids in there. We got Peanut Kerfman, who comes back and he wrestled. But you got Hudson Haas is in there. Cooper Leonard's in there. Blaze McGahey's in there. Cooper Leonard's in there. There's a ton, and I'm going to miss some young guys like Javi Olvera's in there. Just a ton of really good, bigger guys and some older. Evan Pites is another one we got in there, so it should be fun.
And talk about that, because it's not just the underclassmen. You got some seniors that are wrestling as well, that the benefits of some of those football guys, because a lot of those guys are football first. Hudson's a great example, but
right.
You've kind of told them the benefits of getting in the wrestling room as far as staying in shape. And then it's not just the weight room. You try to have self-competition in the weight room, but it's not competition of you against another.
Right.
You get that in the wrestling room, so that's really beneficial to those football guys.
Yeah, it is. This morning actually is the first time we kind of let those dudes scrap. And what I was always told as a young kid, Rusty Benson, Todd Stiley came to me and said, hey, wrestling will make you a better football player. Be a football player first, but the leverage, the natural knee bend, the ability to get after people, push yourself when you're tired, that's what they're getting out of it. And I think also the overtraining. You don't want to just train all the time in one sport unless you're getting a paycheck. Then it's different. But just mixing that up, getting those kids to fight, controlling their weight a little bit, because you can get a little bit big in the wintertime, and they're going to be physically more fit when they come back to football.
All right, and you talk about the number of guys that you have. Iron sharpens iron. You're going to have a lot of good. Some of the best bouts are going to be right there. You had the red-blue, but some of the best bouts are going to be right there in the wrestling room, not even going against other guys. So that really helps, and that's what you need as a program to be successful, that iron sharpening iron.
Absolutely. When we were winning championships, my coach Antrell and myself were talking to Chris about this morning. As a teammate, you get beat by your own teammate, it's okay. I had Jared Roshaw, Kelsey Empty, I never beat them, but once I got good at wrestling, nobody else beat me. So your worst matches were in your practice room. If you could create that or build that kind of team, you're going to be really successful.
Yeah, well, I'm excited about everything getting going. We're going to have these duels coming up. You've already had a few tournaments already under the belt, so now those football guys now really starting to be able to transition to the wrestling room. So a lot of excitement, and man, I can't wait till we get to February and see how this all lands, because I know that this program has a lot of opportunity out in front of it.
Absolutely. It should be a fun season. The dual schedule's really tough. Like I said, we open up Thursday night against Edmond North. They're a legitimate number 3 ranked team in the country, but should be a quality opponent to test yourself against early.
Not only that, when you start looking at even some of the smaller schools you wrestle, whether it be in the tournaments or duels, I mean, Blackwell and Perry and all these are as good as a lot of 6A programs across the state.
Absolutely. Blackwell's returning 3A state champ. Think they bring back 4 medalists, so we go to them next week, and that'll be a tough duel, of kids kind of growing up around each other and knowing each other. So it's always competitive. But wrestling's funny because you don't have to have great numbers to build a great wrestling program. Normally, it's going to come from the history and tradition of family members wrestling. So that can be anywhere, you know.
Yeah.
So big schools, small schools, if you're good at wrestling, you're good at wrestling.
Tradition is something that you have to create, but
Yes.
it's hard to create.
Absolutely.
And fortunately, here in North Central Oklahoma, we have a lot of great traditions, including here at Ponca City.
Absolutely. You know, NOC Tonqua's starting their program back up, and I truly believe if they just recruit Osage, Payne, K County, the lower half of Wichita and Kansas, they don't need to go any farther.
Yeah.
And you're not going to just find good collegiate wrestlers. You're going to find kids that can win on the international level. You know, we got world champions around. We got champions. Heck, we got a Fargo champ in our room. So there's good ones everywhere.
No doubt. All right. Well, appreciate the time as always. Thanks
Thank
for coming
you.
in. Coach Justin Roland, wrestling getting started. Get out there and support the Cats Grapplers when you can. Today's episode of Coach's Corner been brought to you by First National Bank of Oklahoma here in Ponca City. I appreciate their support. Jordan Woodruff saying so long. Until next time, go Cats.